So here is the Runcam Thumb, and if you like FPV, you've probably seen reviews of this guy pretty much everywhere. 16.8 gram little camera capable of 4K 30 and little SD card shoves in the back like so. And the whole purpose of this is it's super light and you can use it with a Gyroflow, which is a free version of essentially Real Steady. And the reason why I've got this camera is for one reason. To be blunt, the world does not need another rubbish Chinese cheap camera. They're invariably really poor, and you'd be better off saving your pennies and buying an Action 2 or a Hero or whatever it is. The only purpose and the reason why this thing is here on my desk is weight. And the reason why I got mine is because I've rather fallen in love with the Foxwhoop 25. And this little guy can happily carry the aforementioned DJI Action 2 or a stripped Hero if I want super stabilised cinematic footage. But I've been really enjoying flying this guy freestyle and just messing around with it. And my thought was, if I got this little guy and perhaps stripped it down, created a little mount for it, then I can add it onto this guy, shed some weight elsewhere, possibly add the HD0 Whoop light board that I've been running in the Mobula, and basically just have a bit of fun. And because these things are sort of 80 or 90 quid, it's not going to be the end of the world if I destroy it or drop it in a stream or whatever. And this particular one is you can get this in a few different packages, but the one that you want to get is the one that comes with the ND filters, and these little guys just clip on like so. They'll also come off pretty easily if you have a crash, so probably add some protection around there. And I kind of thought, well, this is going to be a fun little project. And I've had this guy for a week, and frankly, it's been a pain in the arse. And the reason for that is I'm getting huge jello. And the Foxwhoop 25 is a pretty smooth flyer. But the problem I've been having is it's been really windy this week in Wyndham. And I wasn't too concerned about that because I thought I can use Gyroflow, that'll sort it out. But sadly, it does not. Gyroflow I have messed around with countless hours and I cannot seem to get anything out of it which isn't worse than what I put in the first place. So I went back to the drawing board and I've been messing around with numerous different mounts to go on the original sort of GoPro attachment that came with the Foxwhoop. And all of them left me with pretty severe jello, and the flight footage was unusual. So my latest attempt has been basically just to make an all-in-one mount at a fixed angle. And because I've been able to add more TPU, and this is much stiffer, I seem to have reduced significantly the initial jello I had. And I've temporarily just made a little lens cover to offer a little bit of protection to this guy when I invariably crash into something. And this review is going to be, I suppose, as much a review as my issues with Gyroflow as with this particular camera. Let's be blunt about this. This guy is absolutely fine for what it is. The image quality isn't amazing, but I'm happy with that. I'm happy with relatively lowish quality, and when I say lowish quality, I'm comparing it to GoPro Heroes and the DJI Action 2. But the amount of messing that goes around with it, I wasn't prepared for. And Gyroflow is not the silver bullet I was hoping it would be. It isn't Real Steady. With Real Steady, you basically stick your footage in it, press a button, and it comes out the other end looking magical, regardless of how wobbly and crap the footage that went into it was. Gyroflow, or at least Gyroflow with this guy, seems to be a little bit of a different beast. So this is me in Gyroflow with my first clip, which is 2.7K 60 frames per second, and basically I'm using a profile that somebody has made, which is the same, 2.7K. The 4K profile doesn't exist yet, and I haven't bothered to make one myself, but let's hope that this guy knows what he's doing. And basically I've added a low pass filter of 50 Hz because why not? All of these settings I've left relatively as they were, but I've increased the sync points to 10. I've also played around with sync points from 2 to 140 to see if it improves it. Any stabilization is set at 1, and I've got my smoothness at 0.472. And I've also played around with sort of velocity, damped, and all the other stuff that we've got here. But you can see when you play the footage back, and this is without smoothness on, and then if I smooth it out, you can see how much field of view we lose. And this is the biggest issue here. Even though that Gyroflow in this case isn't doing a particularly bad job, certainly this is as good as I've seen it doing its thing. And as you can see, it's sort of cropping and messing around with the frame. You just lose so much field of view on this little camera that it's sort of next to pointless, and it's cropping in so much that even though I'm filming at 2.7K, the quality is frankly really poor. And I much prefer the footage just raw as it was with the wobbles, etc., because the wind's picking up. That I can live with, certainly if I was doing freestyle. This, I'm not so sure I can. And even, as I said, I've played with every different setting I can think of. There's still this sort of slight sort of rocking motion up and down that I find really irritating. And if you turn off dynamic zoom and just have a static zoom, you can see it crops in so much, it's just unusable. And okay, I can turn the smoothness down, but if I turn it down much, I'm not really sure there's any point in having it on in the first place. And that's the biggest issue with this camera. Simply that if you want to smooth the footage, and you probably will want to do on such a small quad, because we're not talking 5 inches here where you can fly really, really smoothly. We're talking a little tiny light whoop, which will struggle with any sort of wind, and that wind will bring vibrations into your footage. But you can see that Gyroflow just isn't really doing anything other than making what is already a relatively low resolution into, in my eyes, essentially a useless piece of footage, because I've lost so much of the frame by doing it. And as I said, the static zoom is pointless. If I do no zoom, okay, it's better, but I'm still going to have to come further into this image to do anything with it. And that's about as good as I can sort of make it. You know, smoothness sort of down to sort of 0.3. And have no zooming, because as soon as you add in dynamic zoom, you're losing so much field of view. And as I said, I've also tried various different options, but I can't get anything particularly better than that. And in fairness, that looks pretty good, but there's still this sort of slight up and down rocking motion which is just driving me up the wall. So this is the outputted Gyroflow with no smoothing, 2.7K, 60 frames per second. And parts of it are fine and parts of it are frankly pants. They're completely unusable. On okay, I could sort of dial in to these sync points and mess around with them for hours on end, but having already tried that, the end results are never much better. So right now, I don't think Gyroflow is really appropriate for this particular camera, unless somebody comes up with some magic bullet settings for it, which frankly I haven't got time to do. And I haven't seen anybody sort of show sort of stabilized footage which either isn't 5 miles in the sky or flying, you know, an already perfectly smooth cinequad, very, very flatly and very stably, where you wouldn't need much smoothness in the first place. It seems to me on this particular camera, if you need the smoothness, you just can't get it with Gyroflow, and that's pretty disappointing for me. However, now that I'm sort of dialing in the TPU mount situation, I think if I can basically shred some pounds off this quad in terms of the camera TPU, etc., I think I'll probably decase the Runcam Thumb, not because it's going to massively save huge amounts of weight, but simply because the actual case of the Runcam Thumb isn't really going to offer it any protection. And if I'm going to have to use a bulky TPU mount to get rid of this jello, I might as well just combine the two things and just have the camera permanently encased in the TPU. And I think on that basis, I'm pretty happy with the footage. The one thing I do want to show you is if you record in 1440p, you can stretch it with the SuperView little sort of app that somebody made. And to my eyes, at least initially, that's quite a pleasing thing, because we're so used to seeing GoPro footage using SuperView, which obviously stretches the sides of the image, that it makes it kind of look faster and more appealing to the eye. So as I said, this is 1440p, 60 frames per second, run through the SuperView application, which I'll link in the description. I'm pretty happy with that. So yeah, mixed bag really. I think the camera films fine if you can get rid of its jello. Gyroflow for me right now is just a pain in the arse, and I've seen, I don't tend to sort of look at other people's reviews of things. I like to make my own mind up, but I did scout the other night and I noticed Curry Kitten is also fighting Gyroflow on the original Thumb. So it's obviously not just me, but we should wait and see as more lens profiles become available and cleverer guys than me play around with it. Perhaps there'll be a bit of a silver bullet that solves a lot of these issues, but right now that's how I'm finding it. Cheers guys, thanks, bye bye.